Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're about time to start. It's a few minutes after our appointed time. This morning we'll start in our usual fashion with an invocation, and we have this morning with us the pastor Michael Champlin, who is the pastor of Integris Health. And after that, I'll ask Councilman Pettis to lead us in the flag salute. Please stand.
Would you join me in heart and mind in this invocation? Gracious Lord, we gain strength and courage from our belief in the spiritual values of life. Our forefathers have handed us spiritual values that give us purpose and direction, boundaries and hope. Bless this council as they serve the needs of our community, as they respect the rights of all our citizens, as they work to keep our community safe and growing. We have been taught that seeing need and responding to meet that need is spiritual. Whether it's a cup of water, a shelter, a school, a hospital, a highway. Please give great wisdom to this council as they see so many needs. May they seek the affirmation and strength that the spiritual provides. It is easy to hear the famous, the popular, the strong, and successful. Please give this council courage to hear the poor, the weak, and disadvantaged. Grant courage and strength to those families who suffered tremendous loss in our recent storms. May the leaders of the past give courage to this council to push forward, to turn their imagination loose, and create a greater city for a great people and a great state. We are grateful for all our blessings. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to officially call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Council. The first item on our agenda is from the Office of the Mayor. And we want to recognize Kawasaki. I think we have a spokesman here for them. And I want to thank you for your great donation. There was some concern what we would use those things for, and they were operating 24 hours a day the first few weeks we had them. So thank you very much. It was appreciated.
Thank you. Well, members of the council, on behalf of Kawasaki Motors Corporation, we are pleased to donate those utility vehicles for the aid and the assist in the recovery from the tornadoes. Hope they'll be used well, and not just for this set of circumstances, but for many years to come.
Okay, hopefully they won't be called on very often to do this kind of storm relief, but they're there if we need them. Thank you very much, sir.
This is very emblematic of how the community pulls together, but Kawasaki really, don't run off yet, really did a yeoman's job of just coming in and having the compassion to give something back to the community, and they gave us some units that were heavily utilized. And there is a item on the consent docket to receive those donations. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have some appointments on the agenda. Do we have a motion or any discussion on those appointments?
So move.
A motion made and second. Please cast your votes. And the appointments are ratified. Thank you very much. We have a next item on our agenda is to receive the Journal of Council Proceedings for June 11th and approve the Journal of Council Proceedings for May 28th and June 4th. Any questions or comments? Chair will entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
A motion made and second to receive and approve some proceedings. Please cast your votes. And they are received. Thank you very much. Now we have a request for uncontested continuances. Jim, you got some?
Just a couple this morning, Mr. Vice Mayor. On page 17, under item 8J1 on page 17, item D, 3104 Parker Drive, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. And item I, 1608 Northeast 20th, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. And then on page 21, under claims recommended for denial, there's a claim of Mr. Boone. It's item 8U1A. 8U1A, And we ask that that be stricken, and we can put that back on the July 2nd council agenda as a modified confession or judgment.
Good. Thank you very much. Are there any other items that we need to defer? Okay, thank you very much. We will adjourn the council meeting right now and then reconfirm as the Municipal Finance Authority. And we have 4 items there. Are there any questions or comments on those items?
I do on A. This is the roadway widening from 192nd Street to the city limits. Is this being coordinated with ODOT, or is there a reason that we're doing this at this particular time?
It's a listed project, and it's to be done as a part, we're doing engineering, it's to be done as, I think, a part of the 16 sale, so it's not it's something we're doing imminent.
Okay.
We're doing it in year 16 of a sale from 07.
This is my concern, and this is a photograph of what that would look like. Very, very low density, undeveloped. I'm not sure what the utility situation is, but that's the road that we're widening. There are 48 street widening projects as part of the 2007 bond. 48, with a budget of about $170 million. So about 2/3 the convention center budget, $170 million. It's generally accepted nationwide that a 2-lane street can accompany a vehicle per day count of about 10,000 cars a day. And yet, only 8 of the 48 street widening projects have a documented vehicle per day count of more than 10,000. 40 do not. Of the 48 street widening projects, this one is dead last in terms of vehicle per day count. 1,575 cars per day. It is by far 48 that is dead last, 48 out of 48. And so I guess I would argue that it's not necessary, but obviously that point is moot because the voters voted on it and it's done. The question is, if it's dead last in terms of vehicle per day count, why is this being done ahead of parks and water main repairs? And I mean, I've got minor arterials and residential streets that have much greater traffic than this street. Why is this being done at the front? Why wouldn't this be last in terms of priorities of all the projects?
Well, it's not. I mean, it's in the 9th year of the sale. I mean, the first year of the sale was in 08. It was authorized in 07. First year of the sale was 08. This is going to be a sale in 16. So it's not in the first year, and we're trying to phase it so we don't, we'll start them out as we go through. Why is it not built dead last? I think it's just as it fits into the schedule with the other projects. It's in the last quarter, but it's not dead last.
Well, and it depends on how much we can sell each year. There have been some years we've been down. We could have many more years of bond sales to complete this, and we could run out of unlisted funds. We've seen on the Choctaw Road, it went from $3.5 million to $5 million. We may run out of money. And so it would be a shame if we did something like this and weren't able to do a park or something else that's being there. And so
You can't take the money from this and move it to a park.
I understand that.
Okay.
But if you run out of unlisted funds, if you run out of, and we start going over budget on things,
We're just trying to complete the schedule that was voted on by the voters. And again, this is a lower priority, and it's put in the lower end of the program.
okay. It's disappointing to me, $170 million. And I would just, as a final point out that only one of the 48 projects, only one does public transit run on those 48. There's a small segment on Northwest Expressway between Penn and Classen. The other 47 like this this is just for the automobile with very, very low vehicle per day counts. Thanks.
Okay. Joe, any motion for approval? Motion made.
We do have a presentation. Doug's going to talk to us a little bit about the budget.
Okay, very good.
Just a minute. Actually, he has two.
Good morning. The Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority, because it's a trust, does not have the same rules that govern it like the city budget does. However, we follow the same expenditure categories and structure in the OCMFA budget as we do on the city budget. One of the advantages of the trust is it allows the city to engage in multi-year contracts and to set up reserves for future for specific purposes. And as you see before you, the FY14 budget for the OCMFA is $82,409,525, which is an increase of about 3.4% over the current year's budget. The biggest portion of the MFA budget is for health insurance for our active employees at $50 million, or about 60% of the total. This $50 million includes both the city's contribution as well as the employees' contribution for health insurance. The next largest category is risk management, including $12.9 million for workers' compensation, $2.6 million for property and liability insurance, and $225,000 for unemployment claims. IT funds its multi-year contracts for software maintenance, phone service, E911 service, and capital projects from the OCMFA for a total of $7.2 million. And then there are several other smaller types of projects in the MFA, including royalties from oil and natural gas wells on parklands that are dedicated to park capital and maintenance. Funding also flows through the OCMFA for civil litigation defense, stormwater drainage, capital, and other miscellaneous purposes that are well suited to the trust as opposed to a city budget. One of the reasons the MFA budget gets a little less attention than the city budget is that most of the items in the MFA budget were funded from transfers from city funds that were approved in last week's budget that was, or the budget that was adopted last week by the council. For example, the city's contribution for employee health insurance was part of each department's budget that was approved last week. Likewise, the transfers for IT or for risk management were part of the city budget that were approved last week. But they don't represent all of the activity in the MFA. For example, the royalties from oil and natural gas wells on park property are deposited directly in the MFA. The fees that developers pay for stormwater drainage, if they're not doing their own improvements, flow straight to the MFA. So the $82.4 million budget that's before you today represents all of the activity in the OCMFA, not just the funds transferred from the city. And just one other note, because the MFA is a trust of the city, once you approve the budget here in this portion of the agenda, it will also come back to be received by the city council, just so that the council receives that. It's more of a technicality that we have from state law, so you'll see this item twice today. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. And we have a motion and a second, so we need to vote on the issue right now. Please cast your votes, and the issue is approved. Thank you very much. We will adjourn the MFA and reconvene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, and we have 4 items on that, and a budget presentation as well.
Well, similarly, the OCPPA we follow the same sort of structures we do for our city funds. The one difference between the PPA and the MFA in terms of as a trust is the PPA allows for a debt in the form of revenue bonds, and so there are several places within the PPA where we utilize that. The overall budget in the PPA for FY14 is $42,764,772. That's an increase of 3% over the current year's budget. The largest area within the PPA is the debt on the fairgrounds improvements that are funded by the hotel motel tax. Each month, the revenue from the hotel motel tax is transferred to the OCPPA's trustee bank to handle the debt service on that on the fairgrounds there. The funds that are not required to service that debt are then returned back to the hotel motel tax fund, and that activity accounts for $13.3 million, or nearly a third of the OCPPA budget. Golf course activity accounts for about a quarter of the OCPPA budget at $11.4 million. And this includes all the revenue and expenses from the courses as well as the debt service on their revenue bonds. The budget that is before you was recommended by the Golf Commission at their June meeting back in the early part of June. Other significant activities in the PPA include the MAPS-related operations and capital. This includes operations and capital reserves for the Chesapeake Energy Arena, the Cox Business Services Convention Center, operation of the Canal Riverboats, capital repair and maintenance on the Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark, and dredging on the Oklahoma River. And these activities account for about 23% of the OCPPA budget. So other activities in the PPA include our third-party natural gas program, contracts and operations of the bids, the contracts for the Civic Center in Rose State, and several others much smaller miscellaneous activities. And similarly to the MFA, a lot of these funds do flow from city funds, but such as the hotel motel tax or third-party natural gas contracts or the bid contracts. But a much bigger portion in the MFA does come from outside sources directly to the MFA, such as the golf course revenue, Civic Center, Rose State contracts, leases at the ballpark, that sort of thing. So the $42.8 million budget for FY14 brings together all of these activities, so you have a complete picture of the activity expected next year. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the PPA budget.
Are there any questions on the PPA budget? A motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Please cast your votes. And that section is approved. Thank you very much. We will now adjourn the PPA and reconvene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. And we have 3 items on that particular. Are there any questions or comments?
Quick question, Mr. Mayor. The 2 point on item A, the $2.5 million, will FEMA reimburse the city for that amount?
Up to 85% will be the FEMA reimbursements for both the storms on 19th and 20th and also on the 31st. The 31st was just declared a federal emergency last week, so when we started doing cleanup, we didn't know that was going to be an emergency. We just went out and started cleaning up, and they have since declared that as an emergency. The state may pick up some of the 15% outside of that. So with those federal involvements, the dollar amounts may not run that much.
Okay, once they reimburse the city back, will that money be put back into the trust?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Need a motion?
Move the item for approval.
Second.
A motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Cast your votes. And that is approved. We now will adjourn the Oklahoma City Environmental Trust and reconvene as the City Council. And we have the first item on our agenda is consent docket. And are there any questions or comments on the consent docket?
Move the item subject to individual consideration.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Are there individual considerations?
B2, M as in Mary, and AT.
I'm sorry, please again.
M as in Mary and AT as in Tom.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I could just mention a 6X.
X. Okay. And then we have one person signed up to speak on this on 6V and AV, I believe. 6AV, and it's Paige Smiley, is that correct? Would you like to come forward and now make your comments, please?
Did you all have questions?
May we have your name and address, please, for the record?
I can't hardly hear you.
We may have your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, it's Paige Smiley, address 924 Nadine Way.
Okay, thank you very much. You want to comment on item AV?
Yeah, we are starting a mobile paddleboard business where we are renting out paddleboards on the local lakes, Hefner, Overhull, Third Draper when it opens back up, and also Wild, the Stinchcombe Refuge. So we were just, seeking out your approval for that. If you have any questions on what we do.
Are there any questions that Ms. Smiley wants you to hear? Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. All right, Ed, you want to get started with M and AT?
B2 is buying $8 million of bulk fuel, and I guess we're using the same pricing agreements that we've used for the last couple of years. The question I would have is how does that process work? And the renewal criteria states that the market for goods has remained constant or increased, and there's no market advantage to the city to be gained in rebidding. Is that?
Is Amy Simpson here or Craig Freeman? Paula, who can answer the fueling question? Paula Falkenstein, our Director of General Services.
I'm sorry, Councilman, what was your question?
Well, it's $8 million of fuel, and we're not bidding it out. And we're buying it from 3 entities, Glen Oil Company, Martin Eagle Oil Company, Penley Oil Company, and Petroleum Traders Corporation. Is there, and the contention is that there's no market advantage to the city to be gained in rebidding this $8 million of fuel purchases.
Well, it's my understanding from...
Would you pull the microphone down, please, Paula?
Is that better?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Craig?
I can talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. These vendors actually email daily prices to fleet services. So we're actually purchasing fuel from whoever's the lowest price for that day, and it's based on OPUS. And so, we have in other words, their discount remains the same, but we know who's offering the lowest price. So there's really no, so we get prices daily.
Okay, so it's not an annual contract, it's a daily, it fluctuates.
Well, I mean, their discount remains the same, but we get whoever's the lowest on a daily basis is who we purchase from. So, and it's based on on OPUS, so they actually have something to compare it to.
And why do you restrict it to these 4 vendors? I mean,
That's just who bid on the agreement when it was originally bid.
So when they bid a price with a discount, or a discount or price plus. It's actually their cost plus. And so we've got a cost that's based upon, they give us a base of how they would adjust their cost from the market. And then as the market moves on a daily basis, when any of the different entities get ready to make a purchase, they go to the different vendors and check their prices, what they're using as the market base price, and compare those prices, and wherever they're making, to get the best price out of that group, then that's the one they purchase from in that day.
so it's been a couple of years. At what point would you find it
We'll be
necessary
bidding
to
it in the
rebid it?
spring, so it's generally going to be every 3 years,
You'll rebid it every 3 years?
unless we find that we're not getting a good price or we're not having good service.
Okay.
But I think we are at this point.
Okay, so you'll rebid it in the spring?
Yes.
Great.
Ed, just from a private sector perspective, the same thing happens with convenience stores, independent stores that buy gasoline. They constantly, daily check what the prices are, and they'll bid, and they'll buy from, the lowest vendor at the time. So you just can't lock into gasoline prices long-term anymore.
Right. Okay, great. On M, we're using CDBG funds for a loan to a couple to build a private residence on 7th Street. I've just never seen this before.
Councilman, these are the Murrah revitalization funds, so it's a separate pool of funds that were provided us to help with the recovery of the area affected by the bombing. So this has been a revolving loan fund that's been going on for approximately 15 years now. So the money just keeps revolving. This is what it was intended to do. So it's in a restricted area, just within, goes from Classen to 235 on the east, and then 13th on the north, and Robert S. Kerr on the south.
And so it's for residential and commercial?
Yes, it's anything that really meets the definition of revitalization, and so this being a mixed use, we felt that that's the kind of use we're trying to encourage in that area, and we thought it was an appropriate use. And the loans that we've provided in the past have really helped to catalyze that what we call the cottage district area. So this is just a further enhancement of that area.
Okay. AT is just the same contract that we've talked about many times. We had the state audit. I was just looking for an update of will this will be the conclusion of the municipal courts records management system once this $1.3 billion is spent?
It will be.
Great. Okay.
And while we're on those items, if I might, the item above it, AS, there's an error. The resolution is correct, but it says it's a fee increase of $580,000. It is not a fee increase. That's the remaining money that's left in the contract, is the $580,000. So the fee increase is wrong. That's just the remaining amount of money that's in the contract.
Is there, it's not related to municipal courts, but it's the same, the radios, we're
evaluating that situation.
Still evaluating?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Is that it, Ed? Thank you. Meg, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to mention 6X, which is the acceptance and putting the maintenance bond into effect for the Skydance Bridge. And I just had to reflect last night. I actually was looking at it fairly late, and it started out thunder blue and then morphed into sort of a beautiful purple and a pink. And I was reflecting back the first time online I saw sort of a sneak preview of the potential drawing for the bridge. And I just couldn't imagine that that was something that we were going to be able to do in Oklahoma City. And over these last few years, it has created exactly what it was intended to do, which is a really iconic structure as you drive along I-40 coming from the airport. It's absolutely fabulous. And I just want to congratulate the team that put it together and thank the city for being willing to step up and add some additional dollars to an ODOT project. It's a really special part of our community, and I just wanted to recognize it.
Thank you very much. Make good comments. Do we have a motion? Motion made and second. Are there any further comments or discussion on the consent docket? Please cast your votes, and the consent docket is approved. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is a concurrence docket, and there are two items on the agenda on the concurrence docket. Are there any questions or comments on the concurrence docket? A motion made and second. Further discussion? Please cast your votes. Concurrence docket is approved. The next are some items, item 8, requiring separate votes, and we've got some, item A is ordinance on final hearing. It's in Ward, excuse me, I put my glasses off here, Ward 2. Ed, do you have any comments on item A?
This passed the Planning Commission unanimously. There are no protests. Has anybody signed up to speak? I'll move for approval.
Any further discussion? And the item is approved. Item 8A2 is a PUD 1489, 3500 North Cerro Road, from R1 Single Family Residential District to a PUD 1489 Plan Unit Development in Ward 1. Jim?
Has anybody signed up for this one? Well, same story as the last one. I've had no protests about it, so I move for approval.
A motion made and second to approve. Please cast your votes. Thank you. Item A3 is an item in Ward 3. It's a PUD 1494, 5200 South Council Road, from I-2 Moderate Industrial District to PUD 1494 Plan Unit Development District. Larry?
Yes, has anybody signed up on this? This is to allow Hobby Lobby to expand its operations. They are an excellent neighbor in Ward 3 and for the city of Oklahoma City, and unless there's any comments from the council, I move for approval.
A motion made and second to approve item 8A3. Any further discussion? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8A4 is SPUD 707, 1324 Southwest 44th Street from, from R1 Single Family Residential District to PUD 709 Simplified Plan Unit Development District, Ward 6. Meg?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It looks like are you Mr. Nieto?
I'm her husband.
Okay.
But my last name is different.
Okay. We need your name and address for the record then, please.
Yeah, my name is Enrique Gomez. My address is 1324 Southwest 44.
Alrighty.
We've been out of the state for almost 2 months, and we want to do the easement, but we don't have the plans finalized yet. So I'm requesting 1 more month so we can work it out and submit it properly.
Great. That works well for us then. If you make sure that you work with our staff, and if you'll provide the easement, we should have no difficulty with the request. So I'm glad to understand you were out of state. We had 2 different meetings where this was on the agenda, and we weren't able to contact you. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
And I would request then that we defer this for July 2nd is our next meeting.
July
would that
2nd.
be enough time? Or would you rather go 2 more weeks?
2 more weeks will be better.
So that would be July 16th.
16. That's.
Is that enough time for you?
Yes,
All
that
right.
will be enough.
Thank you very much. Well, then
Thank
I
you.
would make a motion that we defer this until July 16th.
Second.
Motion made and second to defer item AA4 until July 16th. Any further discussion? Cast your votes, and the item is deferred. Thank you very much. Item 8A5 is at 40 Northwest 144th Circle from SPUD 336 Simplified Plan Unit Development District to SPUD 725 Simplified Plan Unit Development in Ward 7. John?
Do we have any protesters? Okay. I had the opportunity to go out and visit the site. It's basically to change the current spud from where this facility was used for a church. The church is still in the area but moved around the circle. And so now the building will be used for a martial arts school. So I move for approval.
Second.
A motion made and second to approve item 8A5. Are there any comments or questions?
I'm sorry, I see the applicant is here.
No problem. Just wanted to see if we could get...
Your name and address the record, please.
I apologize. I'm Ben Floyd. I'm representing Post Taekwondo at said location. Was going to see if we could get an emergency on that so we can get it passed through so that he can get in there hopefully by the end of the month.
Let's vote first on the application. We have a motion made and second to approve it. Please cast your ballots. And it is approved. Now we have the emergency. John, would you like to make
I move for emergency.
Second.
a motion made and second to attach the emergency to this application? Please cast your votes. And the emergency is attached. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 8B is an ordinance on final hearing for several items. We have to take these individually. Okay, so item 8B1 is 847, closing Northeast 25th Street between North Santa Fe Avenue and North Oklahoma Avenue. It's in Ward 7. John?
Do we have any protests? I move for approval.
Second.
A motion made and second to approve item 8B1. Are there any further discussions? Cast your ballots, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8B2 is another closing of a platted 15-foot alley extending south of Northwest 10th Street and west off of North Walker Avenue, Ward 6. Meg?
I see that the applicant is here. Bo, did you want to make any comments?
Just very briefly, Bo Patterson with McAfee and Taft here for the applicant, SSM Healthcare. This is the second part of our phase in redevelopment for St. Anthony Hospital, and closing this alley is going to allow the emergency ramp to be built. And we've been working closely with the adjoining neighbor, Kaiser's Restaurant. We'll be granting them some access easements and also deeding a portion of the property to them to continue their access, and also working with them very closely in the construction planning for this. It's an old building we've got, and they have concerns over making sure that the building remains intact. We've indemnified them, so we have the same interest they have. I think their counsel is here today to speak to those same issues, but this is part of that plan, and we're happy to continue to work with them in that respect.
Are there any questions?
Counsel, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Oh, just one or two. Eric Rose, attorney for Kaiser's. We've been working very closely with Saints to bring this project about with minimal damage to the Kaiser's building, which incidentally was, sorry about that. That building was constructed in 1917, if you can believe it, and so we're very concerned about vibration and other things that might damage the mortar. But so far, so good. We've reached an agreement with Saints that we're probably going to expand. And so we're coming along nicely, and I'll echo what Mr. Patterson said. So if there's any questions, Kaiser's is going to be there when this project is completed. That's all I can tell you, with the same good old ice cream. So,
great.
Any questions?
Thank you very much,
Sure.
Councilor.
Are there any questions of Eric before he sits down?
There were no protests on this project. I'd move approval.
Second.
A motion made and seconded to approve item 8B2. Any further discussion? Cast your ballots or votes, and it is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8B3 is the closing of a portion of Northeast 4th Street, a portion of a private access and utility easement, and this north half of platted alley north of Northeast 3rd Street between North Oklahoma Avenue and North Walnut Avenue, Ward 7. John?
Do we have any protests? I move for approval.
A motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Cast your votes, please, and it is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8C is an ordinance on a final hearing having to deal with Southwestern Avenue from the AA Agricultural District to a PUD 1480 Plan Unit Development in Ward 5. I think we have some people signed up to speak. How would you like to proceed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think it might be appropriate if we let the developer represented by Mr. Box to make a presentation, and then some of the protesters have attorneys here wanting to make a presentation as well. And then after that, we'll listen to any individual protesters.
Good morning. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Jalal and Mohammed and Hussein Farzana. They are the applicants and the owners of Home Creations. Our application as it stands today is for a PUD of approximately 68.73 acres for single family. Now, I think it's important with this case to start back at the beginning to give the council a sense of the history of this project. This project started last July with my client, and there's been multiple revisions and multiple renditions of this, and I think it's important to give the council some perspective as to where we started. Thank you. Our original application was approximately 105 acres, and when we filed that application, this is what my clients were seeking, the image you see before you. And what that equated to was approximately 266 single-family lots and approximately 990 multifamily lots and a section of commercial. When we filed it and we got word that the neighbors had some problems with the density and some of the other uses that may have been in the commercial, we went back to the drawing board. Then we arrived at this. We took out a portion of the multifamily. So our second version equated to 254 single-family lots, 30 duplexes, 69 R1ZL lots, which are zero lot line, and 354 multifamily as well as the commercial. That equated to 707 total lots in addition to the commercial. Again, there was protest, so once again we went back to the drawing board. Our third version took out all the multifamily. So what we came with at the Planning Commission and what we presented to the neighbors was an application that had 250 single-family lots, 56 duplex lots, 117 zero-lot line single-family lots, and some commercial. We removed all the multifamily. We added requirements that all the single-family homes be brick. We added the requirement that there be a clubhouse and pools and amenities like that promote a good single-family development, and there was still protest. So we proceeded on to the City Council, or excuse me, to Planning Commission, and ultimately that's where we are now, City Council. Now, between the Planning Commission and today, we've made another modification. We've deleted everything except for the single-family portion. So what you see highlighted in orange is all that we're asking for now. It's only 68.73 acres, and it's only single family. So the application today is just the question of whether or not single family is appropriate at this location. Typically, a PUD is designed to vary certain requirements in the zoning regulations. Typical variance you'd see in a single family would be smaller lot sizes or larger lot coverage. This is unique in that instead of varying requirements that R1 has, we are actually adding and strengthening to what the R1 district will provide for. Our traditional R1 zoning here in Oklahoma City has no requirements for amenities. It has no requirements for brick homes. Straight R1 traditional zoning, you could have an entire development of 6,000 square foot lots, no amenities, and they could be all vinylly sided. What we've done is enhanced the R1 district. This PUD requires that all the homes be brick. We've also sent a letter to staff on May 1st that commits to certain amenities like pools, clubhouses that have workout facilities and meeting rooms, the type of things that develop nice communities. So the neighbors are still in protest, and several of their attorneys are here, and one of the big issues that they talk about is compatibility. And they're going to talk about the fact that this development isn't compatible with surrounding uses. So I think it's important to look at a couple things. This is the zoning map of Oklahoma City. Our development is right there. Now, at the Planning Commission, the attorney for the protesters told the Planning Commission that 134th is a dividing line in this area for density. North of 134th, you see density. South of 134th, you don't see density. So I think it's important that the council sees the whole story. Just a half a mile south of our development, you have significant density. It's actually denser than what we proposed. Now, again, I remind the council, this is just a PUD. This isn't density. This is just whether or not the use of single family is appropriate. But at Planning Commission, we did have a plat, and now our plat will just be for the single family, so I think it's important to look at that. So the plat that is at Planning Commission still is 254 lots. That equates to about 3.87 dwelling units per acre. If we look at other densities in the area, ours is the orange. To the west is 3.14. So admittedly, that is slightly less dense than our application. But as you go further west, it's 4.12 dwelling units per acre, more dense. And that's also south of 134th. North of 134th, it's 3.37. Then you have 4.83, 4.27, 4.31. And as you go south here, it's all right around 4 dwelling units per acre. So if you look at the full scale of this area, density is there. North of 134th, south of 134th. One of the big reasons is the city is spending a significant amount of money widening 134th and widening Southwestern. So I think if we look at compatibility, this is certainly compatible with what's out there. But one of the other factors to look at with compatibility is let's look at the current zoning. It's zoned AA. Some of the things that would allow would be 105 acres of a mobile home development. I would submit to this council that that would be incompatible with the surrounding. Our proposal is more compatible than what the current zoning would allow. The AA zoning district would also allow an agricultural processing plant. I would submit to council again that our just single-family development is more compatible than both a mobile home development and agricultural processing plant. Now, one of the guides that this city uses to guide its future development is the comp plan. So I think it's important that I read a few passages from the comp plan. This area is designated as urban growth and a major activity corridor. The comp plan promotes responsible development of bypass parcels through allowing development at higher intensities than exist on adjoining development parcels. That's the comp plan. The comp plan wants bypass parcels to be developed at higher intensities than what's around it. And as I mentioned, we're slightly more dense than just west, but overall, we're right in line with what's out there. Another passage in the comp plan says that in major activity corridors, overall densities of 8 dwelling units per acre could be allowed. Like I said, we're under 4, so we're well below what the comp plan would anticipate for this major activity corridor. And finally, the comp plan encourages development at higher densities than in the past. We're right in line. We're slightly higher than what's right next to us, but we're right in line with the comp plan, and we're right in line with what the densities are. Now, being consistent with the comp plan and being consistent with the densities in the area, I would submit to the council that from a legal standpoint, this is the use that's appropriate. This is what the comp plan asks for, and I would submit that the city council approving money to be spent to widen these roads was also looking for something with more density. Not agriculture, not a mobile home park, not an agricultural processing plant. And I do want to stress that the issue before the council today is a simple one. It's single family appropriate. Is single family the use appropriate at this piece of land? Now, the protesters are going to talk about lot sizes and streets and things of that nature, and that's a plat issue. And the plat's still at Planning Commission. They can come to Planning Commission and argue those points. This is as simple as, is single family use appropriate? Not, I don't like the size of the lot or I don't like the streets. And as I mentioned, the size of the lots were right in line with everything else in the area. Now, I do want to address a couple points submitted by Mr. Grove in his letter brief. he talks about the amenities and how we haven't committed to amenities. And as I said, we've submitted a letter to staff committing to pool, and clubhouse, and walking trails, and workout facility. So all those things have been committed to. He talks about the compatibility, and as I've addressed, we are compatible, not only with the surrounding densities, but with the comprehensive plan. The tree line that's addressed, we do plan on keeping as many of those trees as we can. We think it serves as a nice buffer to the development to the north and west, and we're also going to include our clubhouse in that area and have walking trails. So we will preserve as much of those trees as we can while still developing our site. And finally, he addresses a tank battery that currently exists out there. And we understand that the oil and gas folks have some interest, and we have to live in that world, and this is just a zoning question. Is single-family appropriate? Tank batteries and things that exist on the site now will have to be addressed in a plat, and they will. But whether or not single-family is appropriate, I would submit to you that it is. When the comprehensive plan calls for it, the city is spending money to improve streets and infrastructure, and the densities in the area are similar. I think single-family is appropriate. Be happy to answer any questions as well as my clients.
Are there any questions? Ed?
Is it your intention to put storm shelters in these? This is very close to both of the schools that were hit. Are you intending on addressing that, or?
Yeah, my client is willing to also stipulate that storm shelters will be required in every home in this development.
Okay. The commercial, do you have an idea of what would go there, or?
I don't now. In our original application, we had deleted a multitude of uses. We had committed that we won't be a traditional strip-type center, but we had to come back for a specific plan at the stage that the Planning Commission could dictate some looks and things like that. But what we would be seeking is retail and the things you would consider typical commercial. But there was a lot of protest, and that's why we've backed off of the commercial portion now, as well as the duplex and the R1ZL. But we had deleted several uses and tried to make it something that was compatible with what the neighbors would want along Western.
And so, David, the reason that you're here today requesting a PUD rather than just to change the zoning is so that you could put into place some requirements that might not just be in R1 zoning. Is that correct?
Correct. This developer could have come with just a straight R1 application that would have fit squarely within the comprehensive plan, and staff would have recommended approval, just like they've recommended approval on this. And you see in the zoning map, there is straight R1 zoning. It's the yellow portion. There's straight R1 zoning all around there. But instead, we have provided that we have to be better than R1 zoning. This is a stronger set of restrictions than all the R1 zoning you see. So that's correct. We wanted all brick homes, and the pictures you've been seeing that have scrolled across your screen, these are the typical homes that my clients are proposing to develop in this neighborhood. So these are a heightened set of standards that you don't normally see in straight R1.
Okay, and just to kind of reemphasize what could be there without any changes at all?
Right. Its current zoning allows for a mobile home development, as well as grazing horses and cattle and all kinds of typical agriculture type of uses, agriculture processing plant, things of that nature.
Thank you.
David, can I get some clarification? You know, the section that was originally planned for commercial, as well as the area that was originally planned for the zero lot lines.
Yes, sir.
Is that still going to be a part of the PUD submitted, or is that going to remain as AA?
As of now, it will remain AA. Okay. Cindy, do you have the map of our current? I'm going to have Cindy put that up.
No, that's fine. That answers the question.
But yeah, as of now, it will remain AA, and the image you see is what we're zoning now. So the area that is left out will be in subsequent applications.
Any other questions for David? Before we call on the attorneys representing the protesters, Wiley, may we ask Dan to come up and just talk about the issue where we separate the question about zoning, say in this case from AA to R1 to the plating requirements, can you talk just a little bit about the process? And Bob, if you need to share input on that, we'd welcome it. As far as if this was approved to allow R1, then they go back through the Planning Commission as it relates to the plating and the size of the lots. Could you talk about that a little bit?
As David said, the PUD establishes the overall density of the project, the specifics of the arrangement of the lots, the lot sizes, the streets are all controlled by the plat, which will be decided by the Planning Commission.
Any other questions for Dan?
Thank you very much.
So you said this is, it does establish the overall density, what we're doing
Yes,
today?
yes, sir.
That's pretty much the only thing, though.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Okay.
We've got 3 people signed up.
Yes, please.
In opposition to this project. Roland Tague.
Excuse me, Mr. Vice Mayor, if the attorneys would like to proceed in a different order, I mean, I'm okay with that if they have a preference.
Mr. Groves.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, members of the council. My name is Eric Groves. I'm an attorney. I represent a protestant in this case. His name is Alan Gann. I'd like to do a little recount of how we got here today. This began as a PUD, and of course it is a PUD now. It originally had a combination of R1ZL, C3, R2, and R4. Attorneys and representatives of the various landowners in this area met for many, many weeks, many, many hours with the applicant's counsel and the applicant's engineer in an effort to design this PUD so that it would be compatible with surrounding land uses. We even went so far as to hire our own engineer to redesign it in a way that we felt would be compatible. Unfortunately, we were not able to reach an agreement. At some point, the applicant took out the R4. And then we looked at how all the other aspects of it could be made compatible, but there really weren't any changes to speak of. Last Thursday, I think it was, the applicant informed us that he would take out the R1ZL, the R2, and the C3, and leave only the R1. And today, the applicant asserts that the issue really is R1 zoning appropriate for this area? But he is not proceeding with R1 zoning. This is still a PUD. And because it is a PUD, PUD law applies to it. In the letter brief that I submitted to you, I cited 2 things that really control this kind of decision. The first is the state statute, which allows cities to zone by PUD in the first place. And I set out the language in that statute, which I think is unambiguous. And it says that the purpose of allowing a local government to proceed with PUDs is to promote land use or activity to be compatible with adjacent uses of land, compatible with adjacent uses of land, and the natural environment, and the planned capacities of public services. That's state law. Our PUD ordinance, which tracks that statute, says that the purpose and intent of our PUD law is to encourage innovative land development while maintaining appropriate limitations on the character and intensity of use, assuring compatibility with adjoining and proximate properties. That's assuring compatibility. Well, this application does not assure that compatibility. In the letter brief, we gave you a lot of numbers about surrounding land, and attached to the brief were 2 things that I think are really dispositive of this case. The first one, and it was this Exhibit C, I'll probably remember looking at it. This is a compilation from the land use records of Cleveland County. Then we took that and overlaid it with an aerial. That was this exhibit, Exhibit D to the letter brief. All it takes is a glance at this aerial to see the sizes of lots surrounding this proposed PUD. They are large lots. They're not farms. They may be zoned AA, but they are in some cases, but they are the residents of numerous people who have invested in this area in the hope that anything that would be built nearby them would be compatible under the law. Now, Mr. Bach speaks of the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan does have provisions in it about activity corridors such as Western, and it does place this property in an urban growth area. But the comprehensive plan is a guide, and I cited the case in my brief where the courts have said that. The law, the PUD statute, and the PUD ordinance, I suggest to you, is controlling over the guidelines in the comprehensive plan. Now, there is a difference, incidentally, between taking AA land and zoning it R1. AA land goes to R1 all the time before this body, and there's nothing really all that unusual about it, but this case is distinguishable. This is just not an instance of taking some AA land out in the country on the fringes of the city and zoning it R1, because in this instance, all of the land that surrounds it is already developed on large lots. So it's not pasture land, as our exhibits indicate. In the brief, we gave you a lot of numbers about density. The density of this particular proposed tract is plainly incompatible with all of the surrounding properties, including Tuscany to the immediate northwest, and everything to the south and to the east. Mr. Bach said that there will be amenities and that he's written a letter to the staff. If there are to be amenities in conformance with law, they should be part of the design statement and filed of record so that when the ordinance is adopted, if it ever is, and I hope it's not, that those amenities will be a legal requirement. A letter to staff does not make amenities a requirement of the PUD. So it's not a question of whether single family is appropriate or not. If the applicant wishes to come before this body with an application for R1, it has every right to do so. But so long as it is here under a PUD, then it has to conform to the law of PUDs. And PUDs require compatibility. And by the way, if the applicant was to come back and just ask for R1, you would still have to make some hard decisions about the extent to which that would be compatible with surrounding land uses. You know, the people who bought land in Calistoga, in Tuscany, and to the south of here depended upon decisions of the city about how zoning would be handled someday around them. They invested their money in these properties, and I think they deserve better treatment than what's being proposed here. Now, one other thing. I want to hand out a email string, and I'll start over here with It doesn't really take much to redesign this thing. So after it became apparent that the applicant was going to take away everything except this R1 tract, we sent an email to their council and we said, here's what we need to make this work. First of all, on the borders with our client's property, which is 15 acres just to the west of this, we want lots 1/2 acre in size, and the same on the southern part of the PUD so as to be compatible with the large lots to the south. We also said we want the average lot size to be approximately 12,000 square feet, which is the same as Calistoga. Now, obviously, that's negotiable, but that would make it compatible with Calistoga, and of course, Calistoga will speak for itself today. Then we said we should have basic amenities, which, as I pointed out, is not really part of the design statement. And finally, we said, how about some buffering? Give us an 8-foot brick fence, brick wall, along the border between my client's land and their property. And then we encouraged them to put in storm shelters. They can't do this. If they did these things, we'd have a degree of compatibility we could live with, but they won't do it. So I leave it to you. What this really has to do with is the direction of the city. One of the tests we should have is, does this development make things any better? Does it really improve things in this area, or is it just the same old thing? You know, we have a great city. At the heart of every city is neighborhoods. And when neighborhoods are great, cities are great. So we can do a lot better than this, and it is your decision. So thank you very much for your attention. There will be other speakers. I'm not going to say anything about the oil and gas problems, by the way. They're best left to people who specialize in that area, but they are serious. Other people from other neighborhoods will address you as well. Thanks very much for your attention.
Are there any questions of Eric before he sits down?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Groves.
Yes, sir.
One of the stipulations that you presented in this email was if the average lot size in PUD 1480 would be approximately 12,000 square feet to be compatible with Calistoga. Would we get to the same answer if, since we are talking about zoning and not platting, would we get to the same answer if we said the density of PUD 1480 would be similar to Calistoga?
Not necessarily. I mean, density and lot sizes are two different things.
Well, I understand that, but how, again, since we're not talking about platting at this point in time, how far apart would you be if you had that stipulation agreed to?
Which stipulation, Councilman?
That in lieu of identifying the average lot size, you agreed to the density.
Oh, I think we'd still be a ways apart. We really would want that lot size. We think that's a very strong characteristic of compatibility is lot sizes.
Could you or someone else explain why it would be different?
I think Ami can address that better than I can. If you will, Ami Swank, my firm.
I'm going to, is it okay to approach Meg to hand something out to him?
Sure.
Kind of wait until everybody gets the particular document. Councilman Greenwell, to answer your question, and I don't really necessarily...
Could you bring the microphone down just a little bit? Thank you.
Is that going to get it?
I hope so. We want everybody to hear you.
There? Okay. Overall, your question about density would come close to resolving it. And if everybody has this document that I passed out now?
I believe so.
Okay. Mr. Box had put up a document that had shown the densities in the various neighborhoods and the proposed density for Palermo. If you'll take a look at basically what had happened when he did that, he had excluded the open areas of the respective PUDs when he calculated their density. And what I've done is gone back through, and so, for example, if you will take Calistoga, the whole PUD was 74 acres. There was a little bit of land set aside for commercial, a little bit of land set aside for office. The rest of the land was dedicated to R1, which made it 69 acres. At the 154 units, which actually left a density of 2.21 units as opposed to the 3.14 units which Mr. Box had shown. If you go directly above the Calistoga, that is actually Vintage Farms, and I'm hoping it shows up. That black box is actually the outline of Vintage Farms. And again, it was a 70-acre tract, set a little bit of land aside for the commercial and office. The remaining acreage of 59.6 acres was set aside for the R1, which left a density of 2.4 acres. Tuscany, which is immediately adjacent to the proposed site, has an average, ended up with an average size of one house per 1.5 acres, which is not shown on his proposal. So if you were to compare the numbers that I have outlined for Palermo at the bottom, is if you were to have removed his open area also to compare to the numbers he had provided, which would have put him at a density of 4.3 units per acre. His representation of 3.9 is correct if you jump over to the numbers that I've provided to you. So to get back to your question, if we got close to the same density, would it help resolve the problem? The answer overall is, in my opinion, it would be a vast, huge improvement, yes. It would, as you can tell on this, you would end up with about, not quite half, but the density right now is about, on average, of the newest PUDs that have gone in, they're averaging between 2.2 and 2.4 units. And like I said, the abutting Tuscany is 1.5 acre per house. I do not have the density on the remaining area up above 134th. In the green, all of that is one large R1 unit, which is Greenbrier. And I would guesstimate your average lot sizes. I have the, it was broken into about 17 sections when they developed it. The average lot size in that appears to be someplace around 7,200 square feet. Approximately half of the current lots are at 5,000, I think 50 for Palomar. I'm sorry, Palermo. So to answer your question, it would, if you can't get into actually the aspect of lot sizes, density would go a long ways to helping resolve it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, please. I'm very disappointed that the commercial is not being addressed as part of the PUD. And I guess the concern I have is that if where we're going is that the only thing that can be developed is ultra-low density single-family housing, but you can't have commercial development to generate the sales tax to pay for services in this area, how is that sustainable for the city? And this is the only state, we don't get access to any other property tax to help pay for services in this area. And so everybody in the city, wherever you are, you can look for 1 mile and a 1 mile diameter around you. And if you don't see commercial activity that's generating sales tax, you're being subsidized by the other taxpayers in Oklahoma City. And so there's a McDonald's across the street, but there's very, very little. Moore is very clever. If you go directly east, right as you pass Santa Fe, the border, there's a CVS and a Walgreens pharmacy, and I'm sure that many people in Tuscany and all this area are going right over to Moore and spending their sales tax dollars in Moore. We have a little bit of retail there on the intersection. I'm just not clear why we would insist on excluding the commercial development, which could generate sales tax to help pay for the services. The people directly on the east of Western, you don't have any protests there. Those would be the people that would be directly across from the commercial.
We didn't protest the C3.
Well, somebody did.
Well, actually, our whole thing has been about the density of the what started out to be the R4, which would then became the R1ZL and the R2. We have at all times told the applicant we were not in protest of the commercial, and actually recommended or made the suggestion of increasing the commercial to help reduce the density. So just for clarification, I don't want you to think any of the applicants are against the commercial.
Let me add one thing to that, Doctor. We didn't object to the concept of commercial in that area, but we had no design information. We didn't know anything about what it would look like, and we still don't if it's ever developed. So we had issues with how it was going to be designed.
So if they come up with design, you have no problem with them coming right back with a commercial application and moving forward with the commercial development?
If they came in with a commercial application for that area, we would cooperate with them. But we need to know what it's going to look like. We need to know how it's going to relate to the neighborhood. And there's nothing but a blank space in their application. Of course, it's taken out now, but that was our big issue with commercial, was how it was going to fit in.
How does the McDonald's fit in? I mean, if it's...
It's just there, Doctor.
Okay. So if it's consistent with the McDonald's and the development at the intersection there on Western, that would be okay with you?
What we said in negotiations was, if you're going to do commercial, tell us what it's going to look like and design it in a way that it's compatible with the neighborhood, that it's inviting, that the traffic flows in, that it flows out, there's pedestrian access from the neighborhood, the kinds of things that your staff has been recommending for commercial for some time. They're doing this kind of thing in Edmond. In fact, we went and looked at some projects in Edmond that we thought were good and healthy for the neighborhoods. They're attractive, and you can get in and out without too much trouble, and they're landscaped, their signage is moderate. That's the kind of thing that we wanted to know about, and of course, we never did.
I hope Edmond's not the standard we're striving.
Well, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no, Doctor. It depends.
All right.
Any other questions? Larry, you have your hand up. David, we've got 3 people signed up.
Well, I think we have a few more attorneys. We're not through yet.
That's what I mean. We've got 3 attorneys signed up to speak. Roland Teague.
David. My name is Roland Teague. I am an attorney. I am representing the oil and gas interests. My address is 100 North Broadway, Oklahoma City. I'm going to hand out some photographs just so that you get some general idea of what it looks like out there now in terms of oil and gas. This particular tract is part of what is called the West Short Junction Unit, which means that this is a part of a unitized area. It comprises 24 sections of land, and it was formed in 1961 by the Corporation Commission. And they do this to try to maximize the production of wells. It appears that the wells in this unit were drilled largely in the 50s. So they've been around a long time, back when this was just agricultural land. We have talked with the applicants about changing some pipelines around, about our future development on this site for oil and gas purposes, but all of a sudden the discussions went dark. We didn't hear any more. They filed a zoning application. Of course, mineral interests are entitled to notice, and we, quote, found out about it some way. But to give you some idea of what things look like, the first picture is a pumping unit. And it sits right here. That pumping unit is actually working, producing oil and gas. The next picture is a wellhead of a well that has not been abandoned and closed. It's available for future purposes that could be used in connection with the production.
It's right here. The third picture, I believe, is a picture of the tank battery, and that is located up here on the north. The red lines that you see crisscrossing the area are existing pipelines. As you can see, they certainly hinder the development of this property, and if somebody's concerned about density and complying with the state statute and the city ordinance, we'll certainly decrease the density unless we get those pipelines moved to another location, and hopefully that can be accommodated. This one particular well that's pumping is located about 25 feet from a street. So if you follow the state statute or the city ordinance, you have to put an area about 300 feet around that well. In fact, there is a statute or ordinance that says you can't be closer than 300 feet to a habitable building. So we're here because the plan that's attached to the PUD shows streets, it shows lots, and they won't be able to develop that plan because of the existing wells that are located there. We could certainly locate pipelines, but we can't pick up a well and move it over somewhere else. So we've had some problems in the past since this extends over this vast area. Example is up here in Tuscany, right here on lot 10. If you would go over and look at that lot, you'd see a foundation, a bunch of rebar, and if you went to the courthouse and looked, you'd see an injunction that stopped that building because right next to it on the adjoining lot is a producing well. Just to give you some idea of what it takes to operate a well, that last picture is a workover rig that's been used on one of the wells in our unit. And if you compare it with the first picture, you see an anchor that's there on the ground. There are 4 of those anchors. They're 95 feet away from the well itself, and that's where they run these wires and attach when they come in with the workover rig. So what I'm basically saying to you is that it seems to me this is premature. I've said this over and over, and people look at me like I'm speaking a foreign language, but the oil and gas interest needs to be dealt with right now before we go through this whole process of a PUD and a plat, so we know where those lines will be, how the wells are protected, and how the people who will buy these lots are protected. That workover rig is nearly 100 feet tall. It's got to have 100 feet away from it. If it falls, you don't want it to hit on a building. The OSHA rules say that you can't drive a truck underneath a workover rig's rigging, so they have to have an additional area outside of that. When they come in, they pull the pipe out, they pull the truck on the outside of the wires. So that gives you some idea of what is necessary just to have an operating well and work it over when it occasionally comes around to do that. So all we're asking is that for now this PUD be put aside, that the oil and gas interest and the equipment that's out there, for instance, the pipelines require, I believe, 50 feet on each side of the center of the pipeline. So we've got to deal with that in some way or manner. And lastly, I would say to you that in the eyes of the law, the minerals are the dominant estate to the surface. It's like an easement. An easement is the dominant estate to the surface, and the surface owner can't obstruct the usage of either minerals or an easement. Our pipelines have been here for a long time. There's a blanket easement written into the unitization agreement, and we're certainly willing to work with these people to move them and move them in a safe way. But for now, that's the way it looks, and we ought to get the cart first before the horse. And that's the reason we're here.
Any questions for Mr. Tate? David, we've got two other things.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Larry.
I watched this on, when this came to the Planning Commission. I don't recall hearing this at the Planning Commission.
Well, they deferred the plat, and so I walked out the door. And then when it came here, I was looking at the PUD, and Exhibit B is basically the plat that's attached. That was the exhibit that is referred to, and unfortunately I didn't notice that at the Planning Commission, or I would have stood up and said something. But
because I live in a neighborhood that has working oil wells in it, and all you do is you make accessibility around there and reserve land for that. One of the oil wells in our neighborhood is right next to an elementary school, by the way, and they seem to operate compatibly. So there's a way to solve this, I believe. Would you agree?
I agree.
Thank you. That's all.
And we have to have a road to get in, and we have one now. So we're ready to work on a solution. It's just this does not work.
I mean, if I could just comment as well, this is the first I've heard of this oil and gas conflict with the situation, and it does appear to me that we probably need to figure out some kind of a solution before the cart may be before the horse here.
I think so.
We've got two more people signed up. Amanda Bowen. Okay. Thank you very much. And just because you were referred to as an attorney, I hope we didn't hurt your feelings. Jim Perrick.
And Mr. Vice Mayor, I didn't mean to say that only attorneys would be speaking, so I apologize for that comment.
Hi, Jim Perrick, 13729 Hillahay Drive. And I am not an attorney and would like to not be confused with one either. I live in Calistoga Crossing. I'm a homeowner there. You guys have obviously got a full background of this, and so I'll be brief. To me, this really comes down to this, and that is, can neighborhoods with unique character, which I think this one has, be preserved? Or in suburban Oklahoma City, are we destined to have all of the suburbs become tract housing as is proposed? And to me, that is the issue. If you look at this area, and you've been provided the maps of it, there's really 1.5 miles square that's different. It's different than any of the neighborhoods around it. It's built up that way through the years. It's going to be that way for a long, long time. You look at 137th Street, which is Highway 37 on the north, which is really a major arterial and a dividing line between further south Oklahoma City. Pennsylvania on the west, about Harvey on the east, and then you go down a little bit past 149th, and you look at that map you have, it's large tracts, horse facilities, houses that have been in families for years. It's developed different than the rest of the area around it. And, you know, the tornado came right through the south half of this neighborhood, wiped out about 6 of my neighbors' homes. They're all building them back. They're not waiting for a developer to come and make this more dense housing. This is the character of the neighborhood, these larger houses, larger lots, rural facilities. That's why people wanted to live in this little 1.5 miles square. And so, to me, that's the overriding factor. I also wanted to mention, it bothers me a little bit the way the applicant is doing this, where they're not considering it all at once. Because up to this point, we've considered the whole PUD for the whole property. And so, if we decide this today, then when they come back later, their development will be much of the notice area for the next go-round, which will lessen the input from the surrounding neighbors. To me, that's a little bit of a problem and bothers me. And so, I just want to leave you with that. And, you know, PUDs are supposed to make neighborhoods better. I don't think this PUD makes the neighborhood better. In fact, it could do long-term harm to kind of the unique character and nature of this development. I would request that you vote no, or if you vote yes with a lot size restriction. So, thank you.
David, how would you like to proceed now? That's all the people who have signed up.
Yes, well, thank you. I would like, if there are any further questions or comments from members of the council, I certainly welcome their input and thoughts, or if there are any questions.
Can we just hear from David about the oil and gas issue, from the applicant about the oil and gas?
I'd like to ask Dan Brummer a question also at some point.
Well,
the question is raised about that this PUD is not legal, that this is a violation of the terms of a PUD.
That's
an interpretation that I had not held before hearing.
Generally, the PUD statute and the PUD ordinance do make reference to the fact that it is to encourage compatible development. Now, compatible development, however, is a very subjective term. It's in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't say that you have compatibility has to be lots of the exact same size, or it has to be the same configuration of lots. The comprehensive plan and what the staff determined was that R1 was compatible, and it is supported by the comprehensive plan. And there is another statute Mr. Groves failed to mention that says that zoning shall be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And your staff report in this case says that it is.
Thank you.
Well, then, so a follow-up would be, Dan, can I ask you, if we were to deny this and this were to go to district court, would you be able to defend a denial?
It would be very difficult. Of the staff, typically you'll call the planning director as a witness. In this case, we would have to defend our own against our own staff report.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask, can you just address the cart before the horse? Could the oil and gas be addressed in the plat?
Yes, sir. I do not believe that the cart is before the horse with the zoning. There are neighborhoods all over this city where, as Councilman McAtee mentioned, where you have homes next to operating oil and gas wells. I grew up in a neighborhood where when we moved in, it had an operating oil and gas. And you have to plat around it. You have to provide access to their sites, but you continue to go. And in my neighborhood that I grew up in, that eventually went away. And so then more homes were developed. So this is a situation that happens all over the city. This developer has neighborhoods all over this city where there's current oil and gas wells. You just plat around it, but that's not a use issue. You're correct. That's a platting issue. So when we come with a final plat, it will have to take into account all the various pipelines and wellheads that are out there and plat around them. And then at the time that they go away or the lines are moved, then we're able to plat those lots. But yeah, we understand that the interests are out there, and that's the world in which we have to live. And we have to plat around or deal with what's out there.
So, David, I want to be very clear to follow up on that is your intention, is when you come back to planning, that there will be a plat in place that addresses these oil and gas concerns.
Yes, that is correct. This exhibit shows all the hashed lines. When this case started, my client and the engineer met with the oil and gas folks, and they asked for where would you want to see the pipelines moved. And you can see the red hash lines indicate where they wanted the pipelines moved. So what they did, my client did, was plat and lay out the design, assuming that that's what will happen. So that has been taken into account already in the plat, but yes, we know and we will have to comply and figure out a way to move them or plat around it.
And everybody's clear about that?
Yes, ma'am. A couple other things. We are in a position where we need a supermajority, and we're now down to 7 council members sitting here. So if anybody has concerns on this, we would ask for a continuance so that we could have a full council. Mr. Groves made a lot of arguments about the PUD ordinance and about the PUD. We've visited with your legal staff, and we would be willing to delete our PUD and amend this here at the podium to just straight R1. That would be exactly what the comp plan calls for. In our opinion, that is not as good of a neighborhood. It doesn't require the amenities that we're willing to do. It doesn't require brick homes, and it doesn't require storm shelters. But if that's what the protesters would like, we'd be willing to do that. But we think the PUD in our application is a better means to have a nice neighborhood. Now, we're willing to make the amenity letter submitted to staff on May 1st a part of any approval. We can stipulate to that, make it a part of this record. So I don't think that this is tract housing. This is a single-family application. And this is one that is within the comp plan. And as Mr. Brummett said, your staff has recommended approval. And we think legally that puts this in a position where this is the use that is appropriate.
I'd like to be heard in response to that.
Mr. Groves. And Eric, if you can, please try to keep your comments short.
Pardon me, sir, I didn't hear that.
Would you please try to keep your comments within 3 minutes if we can?
Yes, I certainly will try. A couple of things. First of all, I have a mild disagreement with my colleague, Mr. Brummett. The statute that says zoning decisions will be made in accordance with the comprehensive plan does not mandate that a municipal government has to follow the comprehensive plan in every instance. If it did, the comprehensive plan would be law, and it isn't. The case decisions construing that language say that the comprehensive plan is a guide, not law. Secondly, the applicant is free to come back with an R1 application if they want to, but this is not an R1 application. And I think that if they want to change it to an R1 application, they need to go back and give notice and go before the commission. That's the procedure. Second thing, I don't construe the staff report as entirely favorable to this project, but here's the thing. The Planning Commission denied it. The Planning Commission denied it. And those are the people with whom you entrust to make good recommendations about what's good zoning and what's not. And they said to deny it. That was their recommendation. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? David, you have some fun. What was the question for us?
Yes, I do want to voice some concern. The area directly south of here, south of the proposed development, is predominantly 5, 10, 20, and larger acreages. I do think that group of tracts of land should receive special attention as it relates to a buffer between their larger lots compared to these smaller lot size in the proposed development. I am concerned about that, and I am concerned in regards to the density, as Ms. Swank pointed out in her presentation, as far as compatibility with the surrounding areas. Having said that, that's on the negative side of this. I do find it welcoming that Councilman Shadid is focusing on commercial development along Western Avenue. I hope that at the conclusion of the widening project that we begin to draw back commercial retail activity from the city of Moore, because I believe Western Avenue is ideal for that. I think it's going to continue to grow in importance from a commercial retail zone from 134th Street all the way down to Norman. And my hope is that we do recover some of that lost sales tax revenue that has found its way into other communities. So, and I recognize the difficult situation we are in with just 7 members of the council today. It would require a full vote approval to get this passed due to the fact that the Planning Commission did deny it. I've asked both parties until just now. Earlier, the thought was that both parties would not like for this to be deferred because it has been addressed in a variety of ways with me and other people for several months now. And we may or may not have 9 people at the next council meeting. We just can't guarantee that. So I'm reluctant to ask for a deferral of the vote. We've spent time listening to it. And I will say this, I think the applicant, Mr. Box, and the developers have done a tremendous job in trying to work with the surrounding neighborhoods. It appears to be much of the concessions have been made by them, very little on the parties opposing this. And that's just not what you should expect, in my opinion. When you decide to live within a city's limits, you've got to be able to deal with existing neighbors and future neighbors. I'm not seeing a whole lot of effort by the surrounding areas to try to work with potential new neighbors. And again, once you decide to live within the city limits, I think that becomes a responsibility that you have to take on, unless you're willing to acquire all of the surrounding real estate around your property. That's the only way you can guarantee what a development may look like when it comes into your area. Having said that, I'm going to move for denial on this due to non-compatibility with respect to the density and the lack of sufficient buffer, especially on the south side.
David, the Secretary informs we have a procedural matter. We have to amend the application to remove the commercial piece out of it.
Okay.
So do you have a motion to approve the amending the application?
I'm sorry, yes. Let's first vote on approving the amended application.
Okay. Have a motion?
Second.
A motion and second. Are there any further discussion? Please cast your ballots. And the amendment is approved. Now, David, you can make your motion on the...
Yes, my proposal then is to deny the amended application based upon the lack of compatibility with respect to the density and the buffering.
I'm going to second that for the purpose of the discussion. I'm not sure I understand why we wouldn't defer it. As long as it's going on and with all that's happened, I'd like to see it come to a vote based on having an opportunity to pass. I mean, I'm going to, if you really oppose a deferral, I mean, seriously, you've said you did. I don't have a reason to believe you didn't say what you felt, so I didn't mean it that way. But I just don't understand why a deferral would be a problem. It's never been deferred on our agenda before. There's a possibility some of the things, I think what Mr. Tague brought up could be addressed better. I think some of the things that Mr. Box did address it better than what I'd heard.
Well, I would agree to the deferral if that's the council's wishes. I'm not opposed to that.
So you're going to amend your motion to defer it?
Okay, I'll amend the motion to defer it for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So what date would that be?
July 2nd.
July 2nd?
Okay, and I would like to say this. I think the parties are fairly close. Whether or not they can come to an agreement remains to be seen. But I'll amend my motion to move for deferral until July the 2nd.
Your second still stands. Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion made and second. Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, please cast your votes. And the item is deferred till July 2nd. Thank you, David. They'll cheat the order. We'll give the chamber a moment or two to clear out before we continue our agenda. You'd like to make a comment, Councilman Cheatham? Thank you. Okay, we're back on our agenda. We're item 8D is an ordinance on final hearing for a agricultural district to SPUD S678, Simplified Plan Youth Development in District Ward 4.
Are there protesters here?
Anybody sign this?
You know, this case is kind of interesting just from that standpoint, in that there were a number of protests. This is diagonally across from a rural grocery store, gas station, kind of an operation out in southeast Oklahoma City, and there's 236 signatures, a little bit misleading because I got a copy of the petition originally, and about 290 of them lived in Yukon or Shawnee or someplace, and it was circulated by the people that owned the service station right across the street. So that part was a little bit misleading. But because I attended a meeting at a church there, where the number one topic was whether or not we should approve this, and the number two topic was whether people should be able to openly carry weapons in the church, it was a fairly interesting meeting, as you might imagine, but I thought that meeting might have generated somebody to come back and talk to us again about this. I've been assured that notice was properly mailed. I know that the application is modified substantially in terms of landscaping and setback and some of those things from what it was. David, why don't you come? Let me ask you a little bit about that to be sure I'm right. It's my understanding that you've modified the landscaping fairly substantially from what it was the last time. Setbacks, parking, that kind of stuff.
Yes, sir. After the Planning Commission, my client went back and tried to find ways to buffer the neighbors immediately across the street. And one of the things they did was provide, in the second page of the handout you'll get, shows the significant amount of landscape that has been added to this site plan. So if you were driving down Anderson, all the landscaping, really the only way you'd see the actual building would be when you drive by the entrance. So what they did with the SPUD is they have a base of rural commercial, and it's a single use. It just allows retail. So they eliminated every other use. They added a significant amount of landscaping, and with that, their intention was to make sure that they had a facility that was less intense than previously asked for, and it provides a significant amount of landscaping that the gas station does not, and we think it makes it a more appropriate application.
The only ingress and egress is off of Anderson? No ingress off of 149?
Correct, it's off of Anderson.
Will there be a sign or something that would let anybody on 149th know that it was there?
I believe the sign will be on the corner, and it's a 20-foot sign, and so it should alert the traveling public.
How tall is it? Oh, I see it. Would you agree to not having it quite that tall? I mean, we're talking about out in the country. I mean, I hate to, I'm not big on tall signs anyway, but
15 feet?
Reduce that height of that?
15 feet?
Better than 20. 5 feet better than 20, matter of fact. How about 10? You're going to be able to see it on Anderson if it's 3 feet off the ground. You know, it's not a question, you know, you're not going to...
My client's on here, but I'm guessing that they're fine with that. We'll agree to 10.
I move approval with the amendment to reduce the sign size
We have to have
10 feet.
One to amend, one to approve. All right, Pete, we need two motions, one to amend the
I
application.
move to amend the sign size to 10 feet. Second.
A motion made and second. Is there any further discussion or questions? Please cast your votes. And the sign amendment is approved. Now we have the vote on the item itself.
I move approval as amended.
A motion made and second to approve item 8D as amended. Is there further discussion or questions? Please cast your votes. And item 8D is approved.
Now, there was only 6. I'm not sure if, I think we had protests on this, so I believe we need a 7th vote. There were only 6 lights.
I was on neutral.
Okay. I'm not assuming what the light will be, but we do need 7. Thank you.
We've got 7. It was difficult, David. May, thank you very much. Okay, item 8E is an ordinance on final hearing. There's 2 of them, actually, and they relate to each other. Item 1 is deals with the word civilized cats.
Socialized cats, I believe, and hopefully those socialized cats are civilized.
Yeah. Any questions? We have a motion made to approve. Have a motion made and second to approve. Is there anybody here in the audience who'd like to speak on item 8E1? If not, please cast your votes. Item 8E1 is approved. Item 8E2 is relating to a general schedule of fees at our animal shelter. Is there anybody who'd like to speak on this item here? Item 8E2. A motion to approve. Is there a second? Motion made and second. Thank you very much, James. It was a worrisome moment there. Don't do this to Vice Mayor now, please. Anyway, is there any other comments or questions? We have a motion made and seconded to approve item 8E2. Please cast your votes. Item 8E2 is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8F is a ordinance on the final hearing authorizing the designation of 1 2-hour reserved parking space for the physically disabled, and this is in Ward 6. Meg, are you okay with this one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a reserved parking space, a handicap space adjacent to the Greyhound bus station. So I move approval.
Okay, is there anybody who would like to comment on item 8F1? Have motion made and seconded to approve item 8F1. Further discussion? Please cast your votes, and it is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8F2 is a no parking restriction on Ward 8, and this seems like a pretty straightforward application. The applicants provided some additional parking for the park, so the net result will be a gain in parking. Is there any comments or questions? Motion made, motion and seconded. Any further discussion? And the item is approved. Item 8F2 is approved. Next item is 8G 1 and 2. It's a public hearing on the assessment roll for Capitol Hill. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this item?
Your Honor, I think there are probably there's people here, but I met with them this morning. We deferred this a week, and the people from the Capitol Hill Business Improvement District met with the people that were here that were concerned about it. One of the things that developed from that conversation was that they were, while they did have concerns about the bid, and those have been addressed to their satisfaction with the bid folks, their bigger concern is a drainage problem at 25th and Walker, which was just horrendous at that last rain. And I talked to them a little bit about the last rain, and they provided pictures that happens about 4 times a year, whether or not we have a record rain or not. So we're going to try to.
Councilman, I've personally been down and looked at the situation. I'm going to be meeting with Eric later on to take a look at some potential.
Well, I got the word of that yesterday that we're going to, but it is that's not a problem of the bid, but it certainly is a problem of the area, and we're going to look at it. But I appreciate the people from the Business Improvement District and the bid members of the Assessment District for meeting twice now since this last week to try to iron out their differences. So I move approval.
Have motion made and seconded. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to make a comment on item 8G2? We have a motion made, seconded. Is there any further discussion? Cast your ballots or votes, please, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item H is an ordinance on a final hearing. This is adopting and ratifying assessment district for this particular bid. It's a related project.
I move the ordinance.
Second. Motion made second. Is there any questions or comments? Cast your votes. And item 8, excuse me, 8F is approved. 8F is approved. And we need the emergency, the Secretary. Okay, we have motion made second to declare emergency. Is there any discussion? Cast your votes, and the emergency is approved. Thank you very much. The next item, item 8I, is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on any item under 8I1? Does anybody sign up to speak? Okay. Motion made and second. Is further discussion? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Okay. The next item is item I2. We have to do that separately? J1. Okay, item 8J1. We have somebody signed up to speak. Barry Bowers. And we have your address.
Vern Bowers.
Vern Bowers. Thank you, Mr. Bowers. I apologize, but...
No problem. My handwriting, I was a little nervous when I filled out the form. I just want to point out that my property was unsecured due to vandalism. There's been a high vandalism area for a long time. And,
excuse me, Mr. Bowers, would you tell us which property you're talking about?
I'm sorry, 1512 North McKinley.
Okay, thank you. It's item 8B. 8JB. Okay, go ahead, please. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I have secured the property and cut the grass, the rank weeds that were there. As far as debris, somebody dumped a couch in my driveway. So I don't know if they're the person that complained to the city about the property, but that whole neighborhood has an ongoing problem with vandalism and graffiti. So I would like to ask the city to, I know you probably do have an increased police presence as far as patrols and everything. Try to keep up the property. Nobody wants to let their value go down, and it is secured now. So I just hope I don't have a parking ticket when I get back outside.
Mr. Bowers, do you have a long-term plan for the property? What are your goals here?
Well, I'm trying to keep it in the family. My daughter is planning on moving into the house. She went through a divorce and stuff, and so they're tied up on that. I had a tenant, but he had some legal problems and had to visit the state for a while. So I, it's not really vacant, but it's not occupied 100% of the time.
Well, Charles, have you had an opportunity to go past? These photographs were taken on the 10th.
Yes.
And today is the 18th, I think. So have you had a chance to go by to see if it has been secured?
No, but we, as routine, after we do this, right before it goes to contract, we revisit the property to make sure that the same conditions exist. If the property is secured, we dismiss the case.
Okay. So, Mr. Bowers, I hope that was clear.
So
as long as it's secured, they will go by and revisit it, and it will be removed from the list. Should it not be, we'll have to go ahead and proceed forward, and if you can work with our staff to be sure it doesn't get back in this condition again, we'd be very grateful.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Meg. Are there any comments? Is anybody else in the audience wanting to speak on any item included under 8J? If not, Chair, entertain a motion to approve. A motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Cast your votes. And the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8K, 1 and 2, is a...
Items K and L are annual resolutions of making appropriations from the limited 0.75 cent sales tax. K is for the fire department, and L is for the police department. We had this item introduced last time.
Is there any comments or questions? This is a public hearing on this item. Motion made and approved to move it forward to a final vote next session.
No, this is it today.
Okay, this is it. The item is approved. Thank you very much. That's item K. Item L is a similar project to deal with the police department. Motion made and second. Any questions on item 8L? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8M is a revocable permit. And we have somebody signed up, Laura Mascra. This is for the North Hudson project. Laura, would you give us her name and address for the record, please?
Good morning, Laura Messina from Elemental Coffee Roasters at 815 North Hudson. I'm here to request that we expand our event, H&H Night Market. It's on the final Friday of the month, March through September. We had a great first event, a second event that got rained out mid-event, and then a third that we ended up canceling on that Friday night that we had the heavy rains. June is looking to be bigger. We have more and more trucks and other vendors that are interested in participating. So we would like to expand the event to include Northwest 7th Street between Hudson and Walker. It changes our closure request to include Hudson all the way down to 6th Street by the federal campus, so that traffic will not enter Hudson and then not be able to turn around and head back south. So our intention is to make that event in an L shape on Hudson and on 7th Street. And even long-term, I don't intend to expand beyond that. We might use a portion of Hudson south of 7th for the purpose of showing a movie, if we can pull that off. But the event is about the size that we want it to be. We want to become more selective on the vendors that are coming and make it a better event instead of a bigger event. So this will be the last time you'll see me asking for an expansion. I do also want to thank you, the city, and the council for being so supportive of this event. It's been great to work with a single point person. It's made it really easy to be clear on what I need to do and make sure that we're doing everything right. So I appreciate that. And I also want you to know that I do believe this event has a big impact on Midtown, and that it's really pushing our neighborhood forward. We have several new tenants that have come in within a couple blocks of our space that are coming to us eager to work on this project and to really make it a part of the community and the development in Midtown.
Comments?
As well, Laura, first of all, I just love you coming here to expand. It's a fabulous event, and I was really excited to see Bar 3 moving in on the corner.
Yes.
And there is
now the
really,
Nature Conservancy right there on 7th Street.
Exciting. Yeah, the Nature Conservancy's office is just down there as well. It's a very exciting opportunity. And I also appreciate the fact that you were willing to work with the federal campus. That is an issue, and I was glad to see that you all were able to come to resolution. So look forward to seeing you down there, and I would move approval.
Thank you.
A motion made and second to approve. Any further comments or questions? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Item 8M2, we have somebody signed up to speak on that. Jeanette Smith. This is for a fireworks demonstration. Jeanette, may we have your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Jeanette Smith. I'm with the Bricktown Association, 2 South Mickey Mill Drive. I'm here today on behalf of the Red Hawks and the Bricktown Association to talk about the July 4th events. On July 3rd, the Red Hawks will be playing a game, and at the conclusion of their game, there's going to be a fireworks show. And then on July 4th, we're staging the Bricktown 4th Fest, which is going to include some live music in the Bricktown district on the corner of Sheridan and Oklahoma Avenue. And then at 9:30, we're going to shoot some fireworks. So really today, I'm here for the revocable to close Sheridan Avenue for the staging of those fireworks. We have talked with the fire marshal, as well as the Bricktown Police, as well as all of the property owners and those properties that are adjacent to the area that we're going to be shooting the fireworks from. And I believe we have all the paperwork in order, so we're just asking for your approval to secure that area.
Are there any questions?
Quick commercial, if I could. Last Friday night, my wife and I had an opportunity to go down to the ballpark, and you had fireworks after the ball game there. Great venue for family entertainment. A lot of families down there enjoying it. If the Red Hawks had played a little better, it would have been a perfect night But I just encourage everybody to come down and avail themselves of the Red Hawks and the fireworks when they have them.
Thank you.
Is that endorsement a motion for approval?
That's a motion for approval.
Thank you. We have a motion made and second to approve this permit. Any further questions or discussion? Cast your votes, and it is approved. Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Item 8N is the next item on our agenda, a revocable permit with the Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation to hold the Stars and Stripes River Festival, and this is in Ward 7. This is festival is June 29th. Are there any comments or questions?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion made and second to approve revocable permit. Are there any discussion? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you. Item O is a resolution approving the policy amendments to the City of Oklahoma City's housing programs.
Bob Daly is here to, I think, give us just a little bit of an explanation of this resolution.
Yes, sir. Bob Daly with Housing Programs. Your questions are?
Well, can you just give us
Okay, basic little background. Sorry about that. Background about the program. Our rehab program's been in existence for over 30 years, and most of our rehabs are about two-bedroom houses, 800 square feet. The average rehab costs about $30,000. The expansion into the targeted neighborhoods, the strong neighborhood initiative areas, we found that the houses are a little bit bigger, the cost for rehabilitation to be higher, so we wanted to raise the limit on our rehab from $33,500 to $60,000 for the rehabs, and along with that, we would expand it from $33,500 with a 5-year deferred lien to a 10-year deferred lien. The third proposal would be to increase the amount for the same reason on the exterior maintenance from $14,000 to $23,000. And then in addition to that, the fourth change would be, we have a lot of citizens in these neighborhoods that have problems with the liens on their mortgages. To help them clear those liens, we want to work with legal services to help those individuals get clear titles so we can process their applications.
Bob, thank you. Are there any questions? Is there any motions? Second. Motion made and second to approve it. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thanks, Bob. The next item is an appeal by the Antioch Christian Academy of an action taken by the Traffic and Transportation Commission, and this is they denied a traffic signal at the intersection of South Portland Avenue and Southwest 119th Street, Ward 5. David, comments?
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. Is there anyone here to speak on the matter? Yes, would you please come forward and repeat your name and address, please, for the record?
I'm Cindy McGonigal, and it's 3616 Southwest 119th.
And your comments, please?
I was hired by Antioch earlier in the year to help secure the campus and make it safer for our students and families. One of the things is traffic. We're on the church and the school and the preschool are on the corner of 119th and Portland. And since I have been there, just even with my own kids as a parent, I have seen multiple accidents just from our ins and outs of our parking lot, but also at the light or at the intersection. When the survey was done, it was done the day before our Easter break. The day before our Easter break, half of our campus is not there. Our preschool, they generally don't have classes Wednesday through Friday when there's a holiday involved. And I believe the survey was done on a Thursday. So half our campus was gone. I don't know if that half of 100 students would change the survey enough to change your minds as far as numbers go. However, a few weeks before that, there was a fatality accident at that intersection. And I just ask that since we've already had one loss of life, not to have another.
Are there any questions?
Yes. Is it Mrs. McGonigal?
McGonigal.
Okay. Well, thank you. Stuart, could we have some discussion from the staff on why this was denied?
Okay, when this item was prepared and sent on to the Traffic and Transportation Commission, we conduct an intersection safety survey, and we also do a traffic signal warrant analysis. She had originally had two items on the agenda that day. One was for school zones on 119th Street and on South Portland. That one wasn't approved, but the reason for not approving that one is because, when we conduct the surveys, there are no pedestrians or school-age pedestrians that go to that school. When we conduct the traffic signal warrant analysis, we set out counters and we do approach volume counts. We look at the collision history and the experience in the area. We look at things like decision site distance, roadway conditions. This particular intersection, because because the speed limit on Southwest 119th Street is posted at 45 miles an hour, it allows us to use some different traffic volume criteria that are established in the manual and uniform traffic control devices. In this particular case, there was one of the 9 signal warrants that was satisfied for the intersection. That was warrant number 3, which was for a peak hour volume, although the manual says that you can use that warrant if you've got an unusual circumstance, like there's a high traffic generator like a factory or some other large generator that will disperse traffic into the network in a somewhat of an unusual condition. In this particular case, it did manage to meet that one warrant, but overall the collision experience is low. There are no sight distance issues present. So aside from that one reduced warrant, there was no other indication that a traffic signal is warranted at this intersection at the current time.
Okay. May I ask a question? Would the applicant be able to request another study, say, within the near future, just to see if the fact that it was performed a day before a holiday had any impact? Could they apply again?
Yeah, we can certainly conduct another study. I mean, because all we'd be doing would be updating our traffic volume, our approach counts, and updating the collision history and running it through the same warrant analysis.
Okay. Would it be better if they waited until September to perform that study, or?
Yeah, but both schools will be in session by mid-September, so we'd have to wait till mid-September.
Okay. It's difficult for us to go against the Traffic Commission's recommendations without additional evidence that may not have been present when they made their application. I am aware of it is a fairly busy street just from a layperson's perspective, and I recognize your concern for that. But I just don't think we have enough information at this time to override the Traffic Commission's recommendation for not including a traffic signal at this time. But again, that would not prevent from another application being requested this fall, say in the middle or late part of September, to see if that would warrant a change in their recommendations. And Mr. Couch, just because a traffic signal is approved, there is still a problem with funding. Isn't that correct?
Right, that's just a step in the process. This would not be a funded signal at this time.
And that could still take another year or so to find the funding to have one?
Or longer.
Or longer. So I apologize. I wish it was an easier process to go through, but it's a somewhat complex one. But I do appreciate your time and concern, and I share it. It's probably going to create more trouble, but you could also consider making an application to adjust the speed limit along 119th Street if you felt like that would have an impact.
Because it's right off of Interstate, off of I-44, people still have in mind to go fast. And you could probably put it to 30 and they'd still go 50 plus, so.
Yeah, we could at least do this for you, Mr. Couch. We could ask for additional surveillance from the police department.
We can get some more enforcement down there.
Yeah, just to enforce that speed limit, because if it's posted 45, people have a tendency to go 50 And so anything we could do to help you, we certainly will.
Stuart, just from an education standpoint, what does it cost? What would it cost to signalize an intersection like this?
Well, just to stand a traffic signal by itself, it'd be probably, due to the size of this one, it would be in the neighborhood of about $100,000. When we presented this to the Traffic Commission, and basically left it at their discretion as far as which action to take on it, one of the staff recommendation was that if the commission voted to recommend approval of this particular item, that it would include roadway improvements to 119th Street to create turn lanes. So when you consider the roadway improvements that would be needed, you'd probably be looking in the neighborhood of about $500,000 for a combined signal and roadway project.
Okay, but a standard light fixtures or traffic signals would cost roughly $100,000, just to keep that in our mind. So, okay, thank you.
How many children attend the school and the church?
Between the preschool and the academy, roughly 200 kids. And we go from 2 years old to 8th grade.
And that's how many days a week?
That's 5 days a week.
So what's the threshold for declaring a school zone? I mean, we have the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit next to a school with 200 kids.
Well, what we use is when we evaluate a location for a school zone, we go out and conduct basically what we call a school-age pedestrian study, and we look to see where kids are crossing the school to get there. Because ordinarily, we provide school zones at locations where a crossing guard is likely to be posted to assist kids on their way to and from school, whether they're on foot or on bicycle.
That seems a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If there's 45-mile speed limit, no crosswalk and no signalized intersection, who would walk there? I mean, so you're saying that there's no pedestrians, so we don't need to accommodate. Is that...
If I may just say this, south of 119th Street is Early Wine Golf Course at Portland, and then, which is on the east side of Portland, going all the way to 104th Street. On the west side of Portland is a commercial development, so there's really no residential development south of Portland, nor is there any east of Portland as far as children who would be able to walk there. Their closest neighborhood would be coming from the south. There's residential developments along Portland as you get closer to 134th Street.
So it's strictly the number of kids walking to school is how we determine whether a school zone should be implemented.
Well, and the potential for them, because in this particular location, the school is located on the southeast corner of 119th Street in Portland. To the west of Portland is I-44, so there's really no traffic, foot traffic that comes from the west, because no one's going to be, no one of the age that would be attending that school would be crossing, an interstate highway bridge. And like Councilman Greenwell mentioned, the nearest subdivisions are actually to the south on Portland Avenue, but they're on the same side of the street as the school, and outside of that, they'd be north and east somewhat of Early Wine Park, so there'd be quite a walk.
Do you think lowering the speed limit would help?
I don't, just because it's right next to I-44. If it would work, it would be great. It'd be a good option. But almost all of our students, they're 2 years old, they're brought in by their folks.
So we're talking about...
We've only got a couple of 7th, 8th graders that walk, which is why I didn't petition the school zone, just because the majority of our parents drive in, drop their kids off, walk them inside, and then leave.
Sure. I will say this, the Moore Public Schools has a plan to put in, I believe it's a new junior high along Portland Avenue. Eric, can you help me remember, is it south of 134th Street or is it between 119th and 134th?
I don't recall specifically, but it's definitely at least a mile south, and it may be two.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is I think the traffic will continue to grow, and one of these days perhaps we can widen Portland Avenue to accommodate that, because the growth is just continuing to occur out in the far southwest part of Oklahoma City, as evidenced by the new school. So again, I just don't want you to give up complete hope, but I would suggest that you consider looking at possibly filing an application for a reduction in the speed limit along 119th Street and see if that would provide some improvement. And then we can again look at this, say, in September.
Can I just ask, that traffic study that was done, you not only look at vehicle per day counts, but you also look at the behavior of the cars and how fast they're actually traveling? Did we do that in this case?
Yes, we conduct a speed survey as well.
Did we do that in this case?
I believe so, yes.
Was it on 119th? I only saw it on Portland.
So one question is, are people really abiding by the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, or is this a highway where people are going 55 or more?
Just a second, I'll pull that up. Tell you what, if you give me a chance, let me pour through here. I brought quite a bit of information with me to tear through. I'll be right back with it.
With my training, I was with Moore Police Department. With my training, I trained with OHP for radar and LiDAR, and to be certified in using those instruments, we have to come within 5 miles an hour of guessing how fast a car is going. I could stand out there and pick out, cars are going 55, they're pushing 60. And if we're not within 5 miles an hour of so many cars, we don't get that certification. We can't use the instruments. I'm fairly confident in just my training, knowing these cars are going significantly faster.
And I would agree with that just from a lay perspective. When I go down 119th Street, it does seem like people tend to go above 45 miles an hour. And so, again, we can certainly provide additional police surveillance as far as the traffic goes to help, offset some of that. And it does seem to have at least a temporary impact on people driving above the speed limit.
On the volume information, I did not bring that information over with me, so it's still across the street in my office. But I'll get you that information.
Not so much the volume, but
the speed information.
Oh, okay. But we did do it. We looked at it.
Yes.
Okay.
It's all part of, it's a standard part of our application process.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Do you have any other comments you'd like to share?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming down.
Thank you.
I would recommend that we deny the appeals request.
So a no vote will be a result in denying it. Yes vote would approve it, so we need no vote if you want to deny it. Is that correct?
A yes vote would deny the appeal.
Yes. Yes vote would deny the appeal? Okay. So a yes vote would deny the appeal?
Yes.
And we have motion made to deny the appeal. James seconded? Motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Can I just ask one? Did the Traffic Commission look at any alternative traffic calming measures other than a signalized intersection? Signage, or was any of that discussed? Or
No, the only thing that was presented was what was applied for. And like I said, she made two different applications that were considered on that agenda. One was for the school zone and the other one was for the traffic signal. So as far as any other actions, no, that wasn't on their agenda, and I don't believe any was discussed.
so could she meet with you or members of the Traffic Commission and look for alternative traffic calming measures other than a signalized intersection?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Now,
yes.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
We have a motion made and approved to deny the appeal. A yes vote would deny the appeal. A yes vote would deny the appeal. Please cast your votes. And the appeal is denied. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's item 8P. Moving right along, item 8 O is a resolution. Q is Q, thank you. Is a resolution authorizing and approving an extension and modification of Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. Is there any questions or comments?
It's continuing the Del TIF. This item has been through the Economic Development Trust. Got a very good
refinancing rate.
That's correct.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item R, we do not need executive session,
That's correct.
but we do need to approve the resolution.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so I need a motion not to, we're not going to enter an executive session. We do have a resolution to approve under item 8R. Motion made and second to approve this item. Is there any further comments or questions? Cast your votes. And item 8R2, 8R1 is approved. Thank you very much. Item 8S, executive session.
We would like to do a short executive session.
Okay. We need a motion to move this to executive session. A motion made and second. Further discussion? And the item is moved to executive session. Thank you. Item 8T. Motion made and second to move this to executive session. Are there any further comments or questions? Cast your votes, please. And this item is moved to executive session. Thank you. Item 8U are claims recommended for denial. And remember, we've taken off A. We've struck it, and it's settled. We're going to be settled soon, but before the next. So, thank you. Anybody here would like to make a comment under any claim recommended for denial? It would be claims B and C.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the remaining claims. Please cast your votes.
To deny.
Deny. I'm sorry. Thank you. We approve the issue, but denying claims. Okay, thank you. Cast your votes, please, and the item is approved, or denied, whatever. Item 9A is claims recommended for approval.
Move the item.
A motion made and second to approve. There's only one recommended for approval. Is there any further comments or questions? Does anybody here like to speak on any item under 8I? It is approved. 9A, pardon me.
We have the extra item. I need to adopt the resolution.
Okay, we have an item that was not included to a resolution authorizing municipal council to confess judgment.
For the record, it was a late posting. It was legally posted.
It was legally
posted, but it was late. It was posted after the original agenda went out.
And or enter an executive session. We don't need an executive session. We just need to approve the resolution. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there any comments or questions?
I had an opportunity to attend the arbitration hearing on Friday and would move approval of this agreement.
Second.
A motion made and second. Further discussion? And the item is approved. Thank you very much. It was legal.
Yes, sir, it was.
Items for council. We have a public hearing regarding the ordinance relating to the municipal courts. Pete, do you want to say anything about that?
No, this is the second step in the change, not to try, but to put the municipal judges on staggered terms. It's just the public hearing required to change the ordinance.
Is there any comments or questions? Anybody in the audience like to make a comment on item 10A? Pete made the motion.
Second.
There was a motion in there, I'm sure, somewhere. Anyway, all those in favor say aye. Or, pardon me, cast your votes, please. And the item is approved. Thank you. Item 10B is a resolution approving travel expenses for Councilman John Pettis.
Move the item.
Motion made and second. Anybody who goes to Milwaukee in the summertime has my condolences. Is there any questions or comments? Cast your votes, please. And the item is approved. Thank you very much.
I'd stipulate it's better going there in the summertime than it would be the wintertime.
additional items, Council? Ms. Meg, again?
Just very quickly, I want to congratulate the YWCA. They had a fabulous event on Saturday evening out at the Cowboy Museum. It was their annual Purple Sash event, extremely well attended, and it's just some of the most heart-wrenching and heartfelt stories from women who are victims of domestic violence who have been helped by the programs and the opportunity at the shelter. It was very well done, and Jan Perry just did an outstanding job along with her committee.
David?
No, thank you. Pete? Just a comment. I read that Justin Jones, who's the head of the Department of Corrections, is resigning, and had some comments with regard to his resignation. And he's a fine public servant, and he will be missed in Oklahoma. And I agree wholeheartedly with his comments about private prisons.
Larry?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to thank the neighborhood that I live in, Windsor Hills. They put on a great neighborhood picnic this past Saturday evening at Will Rogers Park. And the week before, we were able to attend a similar neighborhood association picnic at Harvard Park. I'd like to encourage all the neighborhoods to put together neighborhood picnics during this time of the year and to consider using the public parks that we have that Window maintains. The venues in both cases were very clean, well appointed, and just a great experience. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ed? Tonight at 5:30 at the, I guess it's now the Chevy Event Center. It used to be the Coca-Cola Event Center. In Bricktown will be the ODOT's meeting on the Oklahoma City Boulevard, which has not been particularly well advertised. It wasn't initially, then it got canceled because of the tornado, rescheduled to tonight, still not well advertised. So I want to invite everybody out. Jim, do you know about what will be addressed tonight, or the agenda, or Eric, or?
Well, it's primarily to take a look at that fourth contract section, the area between Walker and Western, that was so heavily discussed earlier.
But to present
further information on that area.
In terms of an environmental impact assessment, or what the Federal Highway Administration thinks about it, or?
Eric, can you tell us about the scope of the meeting tonight with ODOT as it relates to the area between Walker and Western?
The meeting tonight specifically is a continuation of the design process that ODOT's underway on the boulevard. If you recall, the last meeting held in December still raised a number of questions that were heard by Federal Highway Administration. So as a part of the design and where ODOT is out looking into 2013, they're anticipating 3 to 4 more meetings this year, mostly to relook at parts of the design and some of the questions that were raised regarding the environmental process that was completed nearly a decade ago. And this is the first of several of those. And so they're going to look at different design components, most specifically, as the city manager mentioned, right there through that center section, looking at the connections between, say, Western and through Bricktown. So we've made some decisions with the Western Avenue, and those have been well received. There's been decisions made on the east end in the Bricktown area, but that core section is still under study. And so this will be the first of several meetings.
It will be recorded and available for people who can't make the meeting to watch it?
I don't know that. ODOT is hosting the meeting. I would anticipate it's similar to their previous ones where they have done that, but I can't confirm that here.
Do you think that if we're going to have 3 or 4 more meetings, even though it's an ODOT meeting, it obviously has implications for us and Oklahoma City and our development, do you think that we could put that on our website and try and get the word out about when these meetings are so that we get maximum attendance?
I would be happy to work with the website to do that, yes.
Thank you.
Is that it, Ed? Thank you very much. James? City manager reports.
We do have a presentation on our Spokies program. Jennifer Gooden is going to open it out, and Jill Deloge is going to follow her.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Gooden, Sustainability Director. I'm here to talk about Spokies, Oklahoma City's bike share program. I'm going to give an introduction and brief history. The Spokies program has been in operation for just over a year now. So following the history of the program, I'll turn it over to Jill Deloge from downtown OKC to talk about the activities and performance over the past year. Bike share's roots in Oklahoma City date back to 2008, when having a bike share program was identified as something that would be of benefit to the city in the Downtown Strategic Initiative. In 2009, the city received an Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant from the U.S. Department of Energy. That funding was used to launch the Office of Sustainability and conduct a lot of different projects, one of which was the Spokies Bike Share Program, and that funding was used to pay for most of the startup and equipment costs for the Bike Share Program. So the program launched just over a year ago in May 2012 under the name Spokies. There were several reasons that this program was attractive to Oklahoma City. From an energy efficiency perspective, it offers a convenient and accessible transit option, which has the effect of reducing fuel consumption and vehicle emissions. And from a quality of life perspective, it increases street life, improves fitness, and provides a way to engage visitors in our community. Currently, the Spokies program has 7 stations and 95 bicycles. There's a photograph of one of those stations there. I believe that's the one in front of the library. Each of those stations is a fully automated solar-powered station, so it's self-contained, and memberships are available to users by the day, month, or year. This map shows where the 7 existing stations are. The initial launch included stations at Midtown, the Oklahoma City National Memorial, Downtown Library, Cox Convention Center, and Bricktown Ballpark. Then shortly after launch, a station was added in Deep Deuce, and then in October of 2012, a 7th station was added at Automobile Alley along 9th Street. So users can participate in the program by purchasing memberships by the day, the month, or the year. Day memberships are purchased directly at the kiosk, and for those users, their credit card serves as their membership card. Those who are in the area frequently can also purchase month-long or annual memberships. Those can be purchased online or by walking directly into the downtown OKC offices. And for those members, they receive a membership card that's tied to their credit card. There are 2 parts to the fee that can be incurred by riders. The first part, the membership fee, is incurred by anyone who uses the program. That's $5 for a day membership, $20 for a month-long membership, or $75 for a year membership. With that membership, users or riders get an unlimited number of half-hour rides. They can check the bike in and out all day long, as many times as they want to. If they decide to keep the bike longer than 30 minutes, then there's a fee listed as a user fee here that will be $2 per half hour. So that fee is only incurred if the bikes are kept out longer than the half hour. There are also provisions for charges if a bike, in other situations, for example, if a bike were not returned, and for discounts up to 25% for special promotions, corporate memberships, or large groups. And the City of Oklahoma City contracts with Downtown OKC for program management. That contract includes maintenance of the bicycles in the stations, customer service, membership sales, marketing and promotion, and sponsorship. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill Delosier at this point to talk about how that has worked over the last year.
Hi, everyone. Jennifer just mentioned that we added the 7th station. Sure. Jill Delosier, 10900 Rock Ridge Road, 73120. So our 7th station was added at 9th Street and Broadway, an Automobile Alley district, and it's already been really popular. And this summer, we will be installing an 8th station near the Boathouse District, and that location is still being determined by committee. And in 2014, with our proposed budget, we are planning 2 additional stations. In the past year that Spokies has been in operation, we've heavily promoted it with print media and radio, but we've also done events that have been really the best way to promote the program. So we've done some public bike tours last October, and then another one this spring with the Office of Sustainability. And they're free and open to the public, and people can come and use Spokies or bring their own bike. And we've had guest speakers. They've been really fun. We also offer private bike tours if anyone wants to purchase memberships ahead of time for a convention that's in town or just a group of riders, and we've helped them out with that. We had a booth at the Festival of the Arts promoting Spokies, and we also installed a temporary station at Festival of the Arts and at Better Block this year, so people could use Spokies and see what it would be like when the program expands. And for Dead Center Film Festival, we gave additional passes to some of the filmmakers that were in town so they could explore the city while they were here. Some of the recent data that Jennifer compiled for Spokies this spring, in March, it was our highest month other than April, and there were 634 transactions in April. When the weather was really nice, we had 888 transactions. And we looked at the zip codes from where these people were coming, and there are 107 different zip codes, and 76% of them were from Oklahoma. So that was encouraging to know that locals are embracing the concept. And by month, you can see that it's been steadily increasing, except for when it's really hot and when it's really cold, which we expected. And ridership in April was about double, if not more, than the month that we launched last year. And I find this really interesting on the percentage of rides by station. This is just the past couple of months' data, so we could include the new stations. But the Bricktown station is one of the most popular. And I did want to note that the Memorial station is next to a little construction site there, and that will be put back in its original place around the corner in about a month or so. And we had predicted that about 80% of the memberships purchased would be day passes, but it turns out people are using them for day passes much more frequently. So about 96% of the memberships purchased are on a daily basis. Here is our budget that we had planned for last year and the actuals, and you can see there's quite a bit of difference. Most of that is because of when the sponsorship was secured and at what level. So we adjusted the expenses to match, what kind of revenue we were going to see coming in. It actually turned out to be a little bit more profitable than we planned. We did secure, verbally so far, a sponsor for the Spokies Bike Share program that will be a 3.5-year sponsorship, and we'll be announcing who that sponsor is here in about the next month or so when we get a signed agreement. But they will be paying $49,000 to sponsor the program for the rest of this year and $100,000 for each of the 3 following years. And we will be updating the kiosks and the bike themselves to show the sponsor some recognition. And I don't know if Jennifer wants to come back up here, but we have some next steps on how to continue the program.
Sure. Our next 2 steps for the program are contract renewal with Downtown OKC, which will be before council, I believe, at the next meeting. And we also are putting together a small committee that includes current riders and users of the program, as well as representatives from the city and Downtown OKC, to develop an expansion plan.
And it brings people together.
May I? Sustainability, doesn't it also have a safety component? That picture that you showed of the 2 riders who will go unnamed, but one of them is Mr. Couch and one of them is Dr. Shadid, are riding a bicycle, it looks like, with no helmet.
It looks like that to me, too.
At some of our public bike events that we've hosted, we've given out free helmets to the riders.
Yes. With the proposed station coming in at the boathouse, how far can you ride along? There's trails along the river banks, I guess, on the north side. How far can you ride on a bike?
South Trail is 13.4 miles round trip, and the North Trail is about 14.5 round trip.
That's a long ways. You'd really have to hustle to get in within 30 minutes, I'd say.
My understanding is that the Boathouse intends to continue their bike rental program for those who intend to use the full trail, and that the Spokies station will be used primarily by people who wanted to go back and forth between the Boathouse District and downtown and the rest of the station.
Or Bricktown, if you're at the Boathouse District and you want to go up and have lunch in Bricktown, you can do that and drop it off at the Spokie station. That's more the intent than actually going up down the trails.
Okay, thank you.
So the capital, you budgeted $140,000, but you only needed 7. What was that?
The original capital budget was put together in anticipation of a sponsorship with a different sponsor. It didn't materialize as planned, and that original plan would have included a larger expansion during this last year. So because the sponsorship wasn't secured, we didn't do the expansion.
Okay. I think Larry's point is actually a really good one. I mean, what do other cities do about helmets?
Different cities are experimenting with that now. The bike share programs really came into existence first, and now they're thinking about other amenities like that. It varies by whether or not cities have helmet laws, but there are some new technologies that are coming out with helmet dispensers. You can imagine the logistics of that are a little more complicated than the bikes because you have sanitation issues, and also the helmets have to be equipped with impact detection sensor, because if anybody ever does have an accident wearing that helmet's no longer safe to protect someone else. So that technology is evolving.
For the record, I've ridden with Dr. Shadid before, and every other time, outside of that pocket of time with Spokies, he has worn a helmet.
Have you worn it?
Yes, I have.
It's a BYOH, bring your own helmet. I think it's the plan.
I have a comment. The logo is awesome, so whoever designed that's really good. And then the other thing is how much is the contract that we have done in the past with Downtown OKC?
Last year's contract was about $93,000 for all of those services.
Okay. And what fund does that come from?
It is encumbered through the general fund, but as the revenue comes back in from the sponsorships and the bike user fees and memberships, those reimburse that. So we actually came out without using any general fund monies this year.
Thanks.
That's all I have this morning, sir.
Okay. Citizens to be heard. Is there anybody here who would like to address the council? I know we had some young members, young citizens just come in. If they want, you probably just want lunch. Okay, we will recess to go into executive session. We'll be back shortly.